What would you think if I told you that the most terrifying woman is not the one who cries, not the one who screams, not even the one who walks away in fury, but the one who feels nothing? Stay with me until the end of this video, because what you're about to understand may forever change the way you see silence, strength, and the feminine soul. Her silence is not soft. It is surgical. A clean severing of soul ties that once made her bleed. And unlike the wounded woman who still hopes, who still aches, who still reaches for closure, she offers none. Because she no longer needs to understand you. She no longer needs to be understood. There is no rage left in her. Only air, only space, only the cold gravity of someone who has returned home to herself. Watch closely. The woman who feels nothing has already buried you in the graveyard of her nervous system. She does not check her phone. She does not whisper your name in the dark. She does not make your memory holy. You are not cursed. You are not blessed. You are simply gone. And if you think this is cruelty, you have misunderstood everything Carl Jung warned us about the feminine unconscious. You see, this woman once loved like fire. She loved like myth. She gave with the kind of spiritual generosity that poets write about and men try to own. But every time she extended her soul into the space between you, she was met not with depth, but with absence. Not with truth, but with performance. And so, like Psyche descending into the underworld, she made the ultimate sacrifice. She turned inward. This is not a story of heartbreak. This is a story of individuation. Jung taught us that when a woman begins the journey into her own shadow, she will meet every mask she has worn to be lovable. She will see the girl who apologized to avoid abandonment, the lover who stayed just a little too long, hoping softness would melt stone, the mother, the muse, the mystery, whatever shape she contorted herself into to be kept. But one day, something breaks. Not loudly, not violently. It is not an explosion. It is a quiet reckoning. She looks into the mirror and sees not a failure to be loved, but a failure to love herself. She sees the betrayal of every yes that should have been no, the violence of every smile that cost her peace. She sees her own complicity in her erosion. And from that day forward, she no longer performs. To the outside world, she may seem distant, even cold. But this is not detachment. It is recalibration. She has stepped out of the theater of emotional codependence. She no longer auditions for roles in someone else's fantasy. She no longer confuses chemistry with destiny. The tingling of your absence no longer moves her. The echo of your voice no longer stirs. There is power in this kind of woman, a power that does not seek to dominate, but to liberate. She is not trying to win you back. She is not trying to win at all. She has stopped playing. Jung believed the woman who integrates her shadow becomes sovereign. She walks the world not needing to be chosen, because she has chosen herself. And with that choice comes a terrifying consequence. For others, not for her. You cannot manipulate her with silence. She has made silence her sanctuary. You cannot lure her back with nostalgia. She has buried her fantasies beside your empty promises. You cannot provoke her with absence. She is absence. And yet she is more present than she has ever been. This is the paradox that terrifies the ego. The woman who feels nothing is the woman who has felt everything and survived. Do not mistake her lack of reaction for numbness. It is precision, a conscious refusal to bleed for what is beneath her frequency. She is not cold. She is clean, not empty, but whole. And if you ever encounter her gaze, you will know it is not cruel, but it is final. There is no hook left in her for your apology, no wound left for your return. She does not wish you harm. She simply does not wish for you. Because some women are not waiting to be understood. Some women have become the understanding. And the moment she no longer needs your validation, the moment her tears dry and her nervous system recalibrates, she becomes something ancient, something sacred, something dangerous. The woman who feels nothing is not without feeling. She has simply stopped wasting it. This is the part that most people misunderstand. They think she has shut down, gone numb, lost her softness. But Jung would tell you, this is not the collapse of her emotions. This is their evolution. The chrysalis stage has ended. She is no longer the caterpillar trying to survive. She is not even the butterfly looking to be admired. She is the wind itself, felt, but never held. You may think you can reach her through guilt, through your old patterns of withdrawal, punishment, breadcrumbing connection. But these tactics no longer penetrate her field. She has done the work. She has sat in the fire of abandonment and emerged whole. What once devastated her now feels like dust brushing against steel. She doesn't flinch. She doesn't chase. She doesn't explain. And this is the death of your power. Because the narcissist, the emotionally unavailable man, the eternal boy who believed her light would always be waiting, he now stands in the ruins of his illusion. He once mistook her empathy for weakness, her willingness to understand for a desire to be saved. He saw her softness as something to mold. But the archetypal feminine he awoke was never just lover or nurturer. She was also warrior. She was also destroyer. And now, standing in her stillness, he begins to feel it, the unbearable weight of being unseen by the one who once saw everything. Jung called this confrontation with the self the beginning of the real spiritual journey. For her, this means no longer leaking energy toward men who have not earned access to her soul. She is done trying to be decoded, done narrating her value for someone else's comprehension. The dangerous power of this woman is that she no longer believes she must be palatable to be powerful. And so she becomes incomprehensible to those who have never looked beyond the surface. To the man still measuring a woman's worth by how much she desires him, she becomes terrifying, because now she no longer needs to be desired. She has transmuted her longing into presence. Do you feel that silence between your last message and her lack of response that is not neglect? That is the mirror. That is the place where you must meet yourself. This is what Jung meant by shadow confrontation. When she withdraws her energy, she does not disappear. She reveals. Your projections fall to the floor. Your fantasies are returned to sender. She is no longer available to be the canvas for your unhealed wounds. Instead, she has become her own subject. Not an object of your affection or your regret, but the writer of her own mythology. She is not trying to be seen. She is now the one doing the seeing, and what she sees is clear. She was never too much. She was never too emotional, too sensitive, too intense. She simply was with someone who could not hold her. And now, she holds herself. And yet, even now, the world tries to shame this woman. It whispers that she is bitter, jaded, cynical, that she should soften again, open again, trust again, that her power is too sharp, too unsettling, But this, too, she sees through. Because she remembers, when she was soft, she was consumed. When she was open, she was exploited. When she trusted, she was torn. So now, she listens not to the voices of the crowd, but to the echo within her own ribcage. That sacred silence that says, "You are not hard, you are sacred, and sacred things are not handed out." And if you, watching this, feel that quiet stirring in your chest, if you recognize her in yourself, know this: you are not broken, you are awakening. And your stillness is not absence, it is presence refined. Let them call it distance. You call it discernment. Let them say you've changed. You say you've remembered who you were before they tried to make you forget. Because the most dangerous woman in the room is not the loud one, not the wounded one, not even the angry one. It is the one who no longer reacts, the one who no longer needs to explain her absence, the one who has become the space that others must rise to meet or be left behind. In the sacred architecture of the psyche, there is a threshold, a doorway few women cross, and fewer still return from unchanged. It is the place where longing dies and self-respect is born, not as a performance, but as a pulse, a knowing. The woman who feels nothing has walked through that threshold. And what she left behind was not just a man, but the version of herself that once needed him to feel whole. She doesn't mourn you anymore. She mourned you long before she left, quietly, in rooms where she sat staring at a phone that never rang, in dreams that ended in silence, in conversations where she translated her pain into softness just to keep you comfortable. No, she is not mourning you now. She is mourning the years she spent dimming herself so you wouldn't feel small. Jung knew this grief. He called it the necessary death of the false self. The ego doesn't want this woman to change. It wants her predictable, dependent, pliable. But the soul, oh, the soul demands truth. It drags her through fire, strips her illusions, and whispers, "You are not here to be consumed." So when she emerges, she no longer flinches at your distance. She embraces it. When you withdraw, she doesn't chase. She exhales. She thanks the universe for removing what no longer aligns. She doesn't send that one last message. She doesn't reopen the wound for closure. Her silence is not weakness. It is her final act of love for herself. Because this isn't revenge, it's resurrection. There is a rare kind of woman who doesn't weaponize her indifference. She simply doesn't offer you a second chance to misunderstand her. And that is far more terrifying than rage, because rage still contains hope. Rage still says, "You matter enough to move me." But she no longer moves. She no longer dances in your projections. She no longer waits for you to remember the version of her that was easier to control. She is not there. This is what makes her dangerous, not to herself, but to every illusion that once kept her tethered. She doesn't want to be adored. She wants to be free. She doesn't want promises. She wants peace. And peace doesn't come from being chosen. It comes from choosing not to abandon yourself ever again. The men who meet her now feel it before she speaks. They feel it in the way she doesn't flinch at silence, in the way she watches, not with hunger, but with clarity, in the way she doesn't try to be liked, but dares to be known. And many won't stay, not because she's too much, but because she asks a question without words. Can you meet me where I no longer betray myself? Most cannot, but the woman who feels nothing does not shrink. She does not bargain. She does not perform pain for the comfort of others. She simply returns to the life that she now protects with the ferocity of a queen who has built a kingdom from her own bones. Her boundaries are not doors with locks. They are oceans, and you must know how to swim. There is an eerie beauty to this kind of woman. Not the beauty of youth or softness, but the beauty of scars turned sacred, of a heart no longer starving, of silence that feels like truth. She is the embodiment of what Jung called individuation, the moment a person becomes whole unto themselves. And in this wholeness, she is no longer seduced by potential. She wants presence. She wants truth. And if you cannot offer it, she will not hate you. She will simply disappear from the garden of your reach. This is how her power works, not by force, but by presence. Not by loud declarations, but by quiet refusal. Not by punishing your absence, but by being at peace with it. So if you wonder why she stopped replying, it is not because she didn't care. It is because she cared for too long in places where her care was wasted. If you wonder why her eyes don't light up when you walk in, it is because she lit too many candles for those who blew them out. And if you wonder why she feels like a closed book, it is because the chapter with your name has already ended. There is something ancient in her now, something beyond the need to be seen. A woman who has felt too much and survived it does not seek attention. She radiates consequence. This is the feminine that no longer asks to be held because she has remembered how to hold herself. Jung knew the terror this provokes in those who have relied on feminine wounding to stay dominant. Because when a woman no longer believes that her pain makes her worthy of love, she stops bleeding for your affection. She stops explaining herself into your comprehension. She stops waiting for the echo of her own voice to return from someone else's mouth. And in doing so, she becomes untouchable. Not in the sense of distance, but in dignity. Not because she is above you, but because she is finally beside herself. She has stepped into the place within where no one else gets to vote. And that is what truly ends the game. The game where she twisted herself into relevance, where she begged the universe for signs, where she molded her fire into warmth, hoping you'd stay just a little longer. That game is over. She is no longer playing. She is becoming. Do you feel it now? The chill in the air that's not indifference. That's liberation. She isn't being cold, she's being clean. You won't find her broadcasting her healing. She doesn't post warnings. She doesn't declare war. There are no exit speeches, only exits. She has learned that real power is quiet, that peace doesn't require proof, that the final form of self-love is silence in the face of what once shattered her. And for those who try to come back, those who send the late-night messages, who attempt to lure her back with sweet nothings or rewritten memories, she offers no venom, no sarcasm, no revenge. Just absence. The kind of absence that makes you wonder if you ever really knew her at all. And maybe you didn't. Maybe what you knew was her survival self. The version of her still hoping love could heal what history buried. The woman who made excuses for neglect. Who saw red flags as invitations to understand. Who confused chaos with passion, control with care. But that woman died when she realized no one was coming to save her. When she looked in the mirror and saw not a damsel in distress, but a warrior in reflection. And now, The woman who feels nothing is not lifeless. She is just no longer living in the dimension where your games make sense. She is done talking circles around your silence, done shrinking into your comfort zones, done convincing you of her worth. Because worth, true worth, is never negotiated. It is remembered. And once remembered, it cannot be forgotten. This is what makes her dangerous. Not her anger, not her rebellion, but her clarity. She sees through you, through the charm, the tactics, the remorseful eyes that only wake when she's walking away. She doesn't need your promises. She has heard them all before. What she needs now is presence. What she worships now is peace. And what she offers is distance. Not to punish you, but to preserve herself. She is not waiting for you to see the light. She is walking in it. Jung once wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." This woman has paid the price. And now, she holds that privilege like a sword, not to harm, but to protect the sanctuary she has built within. The woman who feels nothing is not void of emotion. She is simply done performing pain for people who benefit from her suffering. Her tears have turned into thresholds, her heartbreak into ceremony, her silence into scripture. And should you ever cross her path again, don't mistake her gaze for emptiness. It is full, just not with you. She doesn't return to old wounds, not because she's hardened, but because she's healed. Her detachment is not armor, it's clarity. It's the wisdom of a woman who has stood in the ruins of herself and chosen to rise without asking for applause. She no longer romanticizes chaos, no longer chases the possibility of change in a man who cannot change himself. She has understood the most painful truth, that love, no matter how deep, cannot resurrect the emotionally unavailable. And so she walks away, not with bitterness, not with pride, but with reverence, because leaving is no longer an act of resistance. It is a rite of passage. It is the closing of the circle she once kept open, hoping someone might step into it and meet her there. She has stopped keeping the door unlocked for those who only enter to rearrange her peace. Carl Jung called this the return to the self, the most radical act of spiritual transformation. When a woman no longer seeks to merge with another for completion, but to integrate the lost parts of herself, she becomes not a partner, but a force. And it is this force that unsettles those still ruled by the need to possess. She cannot be owned. She cannot be predicted. She cannot be reshaped into comfort. Her stillness now contains more truth than your best apologies. Her eyes no longer scan for signs of your growth. Her soul no longer bends toward your frequency. Because what once felt like longing now feels like lowering, and she has risen too far to descend again. She is not unkind. She is unavailable to anything that costs her clarity, to anything that demands the betrayal of her intuition, to anyone who mistakes her softness for submission. She still feels, but she no longer floods. She still hopes, but she no longer waits. She still loves, but she no longer bleeds for it. This is what Jung meant when he said that the individuation of the feminine archetype leads not to coldness, but to wholeness. She is no longer half a heart looking for the missing beat. She is her own rhythm, her own closure, her own witness. And though men may long for the woman she was, pliable, patient, always reaching, they will find her presence unsettling now. Not because she is cruel, but because she no longer orients herself around their gravity. She is her own axis, her own sun. They will call her dangerous, because in a world built on female compliance, a woman who needs nothing from you is a threat. A woman who chooses herself over your potential is a revolution. A woman who feels nothing where she once felt everything for you is a mirror, not showing you her emptiness, but your own. And here is the final truth. The woman who feels nothing is not devoid of love. She is love, distilled. Love that no longer tolerates distortion. Love that has been boiled down to essence. Love that no longer begs, bends, or breaks to be received. She does not need to be desired to feel radiant. She does not need to be needed to feel real. She does not need to be remembered to know she mattered. Her energy is now her own. Her body, a temple closed to tourists. Her heart, a sanctuary for those who know how to sit with silence. And her presence, a reckoning for every man who mistook her openness as an invitation to disappear. So if you find yourself haunted by the space she once filled, know this: you are not missing her. You are missing the version of yourself that only existed in her light. But she has turned inward now, lit the lantern of her own knowing. And if one day you glimpse her from afar, still, sovereign, unreachable, remember this: the woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses. If this message stirred something in you, don't keep it to yourself. Like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more soul-deep truths rooted in psychology, power, and feminine awakening.